The goal of Data Transformers podcast is to accelerate digital transformation by bridging the gap between business outcomes and rapidly advancing technologies. And we aim to bridge this gap by focusing on data. I am Peggy Tsai, top 50 women in tech influencer, co-author of the AI book, and data governance expert.
I'm Ramesh Danta, an entrepreneur, a tech blogger, and AI enthusiast. So, hello everyone. Welcome to one more episode of the Data Transformers podcast. Today, I'm excited to introduce a guest who I've been in touch with for the last 4 or 5 years, Jill Dyche. Jill is an executive advisor, software executive, a founder of companies, and then author of multiple books. And so, Jill, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, you guys. Happy to be here.
Thank you. So, Jill, now you've done it all. So let us know what you're doing now.
Yeah, so I'm kind of mixing it up a little bit during the pandemic. Why not, right? So I am doing some strategy consulting with some independent clients. I'm on retainer. I've got 3 clients right now, and it's they're very different. So it's very engaging, and I'm always learning. So it's great. And then I'm also running a nonprofit. So I run Out of the Cage, which is a nonprofit that rescues dogs in high kill shelters around Southern California. So it's still very much a problem, the problem of euthanasia in animal shelters across the country, and we're seeking to mitigate that and find urgent dogs for ever families.
Wow, that's really great, Jill. I think the pandemic has certainly caused or changed a lot of the way that people are working and executing on data strategies and projects. So I'm curious as to any shifts in terms of either the strategy or the really execution from what you're hearing from your customers versus maybe a year or 2 ago before COVID.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think now my clients are interested in reducing their technical debt in modernization through digital technologies. And, analytics and data are just at the forefront of that. And even modernizing their analytics environments to a certain extent with the emergence of newer technologies and newer solutions and some of the open source trends that we're seeing. And so the best clients are the ones that understand the strategic value of all that stuff. And so that's what it's kind of nice when you're an independent consultant and you can pick and choose your clients. And I'm choosing the ones that understand the strategic value of data. So that's a nice luxury for me.
Been focusing a lot is on data, Jill, right? Yeah. So it's, the quality, like the value of a good data, you keep saying it cannot be underestimated, right?
Yep.
So what are you seeing with respect to the quality of data now, let's say, so compared to a few years ago, right? It seems almost like we keep talking about it, but there is not enough progress or enough action that's done. So what's your thinking on that one?
Yeah, so it's interesting because I'm having some similar conversations with my clients around being more tactical, being more execution oriented, and working within the context of the various analytics applications that need the data, as opposed to focusing on platforms. So, you guys know, back in the day, there was this tendency to just load a bunch of data and then worry about it later, right? And companies don't have that luxury anymore. Executive management and boards of directors don't have the patience for those kind of exercises anymore. So what companies want to do is they want to get down to brass tacks. How do we retain good customers and cast the net wider to get more customers, right? And what does that look like? Not only from a data perspective, but from a data pipeline and process perspective, right? So the use cases have become very central to the data conversation like never before.
Jill, I just want to actually ask you, you mentioned earlier you're being very selective in the types of customers that you're choosing. can you give us a better profile of what you think are good customers that will actually adapt and execute on these type of tactical data analytics projects? Because I mean, obviously, it can't be large enterprises that are very slow to move and make decisions.
Yeah, that's a good point, Peggy, too, because people still really want to move more quickly. They want to be agile, they want to execute, they want to deliver. And it's funny because the other day I was talking to a company and they were saying, we want to be more mature with our analytics and data. We want to go up the maturity life cycle. And how do we get to be more mature? And I just said, maturity is in delivery. Right. I mean, we can, model the data all day long. We can load the data all day long. But when it comes to true maturity, it's really the cadence of actual value delivery, if you will. And so, when I choose clients, it's almost impossible now to find a company where that has nothing when it comes to analytics and data. And so the interesting companies are the ones that have taken themselves to a point where they've got some technology, they've got some platforms, they've got applications, they've got a business community that's, data savvy now, or at least they're saying the right things. And so how do we propel them forward and leapfrog some of the classic challenges that they've had in the past and link, ideally link data and analytics with a larger corporate objective or set of objectives. So the value isn't just in the day-to-day, revenue generation or economies of scale, but also, the enhancement of the brand, the ability to achieve corporate strategy, which executives are measured on, right? So it's almost, data and analytics now almost have a higher purpose than they ever have before because we're almost reliant on them to get the big stuff done. Right. So it's actually a real sea change because I want to say we got away with, and, sometimes some places this was perfectly acceptable. We got away with these kind of little analytics point solutions that, did our, helped us do our day jobs. And that was all fine. But I think the objectives for analytics and data these days are a lot loftier. They have a lot more executive attention than ever. And the word strategy and mission, those words are used more often than ever before when it comes to analytics and data. So I think that's a good sign.
So along those lines, like it seems like as part of the strategy, you keep hearing about importance of data, importance of analytics. In the past, we said big data and then cloud computing. All these things come now. Suddenly, the artificial intelligence seems to be upon us. Like it's either you're forced to do, if you're an executive, do something with it. I mean, even if you don't know what to do with it.
Yeah.
Right. One of the things that you say is that artificial intelligence will disrupt both internally as well as externally. Right.
Yeah.
So can you clarify a little bit, what do you mean as part of your strategy? How is it going to disrupt internally?
Internally, it's been a challenge because I think companies are waking up to the fact that the external success of AI and machine learning is directly proportional to the richness of the data that you have, right? So if you're not mature in terms of not only just your data volumes, but in the integration of your data, right? In the meaningfulness of your data, then you're not going to get the bang for your buck with AI that you would if you had better data and more of it and, richer integrated, interrelated data. On various platforms, right? So it's been really interesting to see AI kind of pull data maturity along with it because the conversations are, wow, we can't really ask Alexa certain questions, without the right data on the back end. We can't enable our customers to actually see the benefits of our modern technologies without the right data. So it's been a real wake-up call, I think, not only to executive managers, but to CIOs, and in a lot of cases, chief marketing officers as well, that investment needs to be made in data if they want to take their capabilities to the next level. Yeah, and that means organization, just to answer your question. Sorry, Peggy. That means not only reinvesting in data, but reinvesting in skill sets, acquiring new skill sets. I'm telling like all my clients right now, data is its own specialty. You can't link it to just, operational applications. You can't just link it to, a byproduct of operational systems development is its own specialization, right? So these, companies with, data offices or data management teams are ahead of the game when it comes to the readiness for some of these newer modern technologies.
Actually, that was part of my question to you, Jill, as well. I mean, I've seen a lot of organizations kind of put analytics at the end, because that's really what is tangible, what executives can understand and see and touch. But there's a lot of other factors, like building a data management office and having a data strategy that really propels and supports ultimately analytics at the end. I was wondering if you could share any other factors, contributing factors, right, in the organization that makes analytics program propel it to be successful.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's kind of a tired analogy, but Peter Drucker, culture eats strategy for breakfast, right? Culture is so important. I have a client right now, and we had kind of our first big Zoom meeting, and I was asking all these cultural conversations, and I think they were kind of like, what is she doing? Because, I think they thought I was going to go directly to data, when in fact the company's culture informs a lot of the success of how we approach data, right? There are very engineering cultures that won't function very well in kind of a top-down planning. They need, a kind of a bottom-up plan that focuses on execution, and there's a comfort level there around delivery. And we've got other cultures where if executive management hasn't approved and funded it, we don't do it, right? And so that informs another kind of delivery plan. And so culture is extremely important in the success of these data programs. And really, there's no wrong answer. I mean, I think in a lot of cases, when I ask these questions about culture, a lot of the companies are embarrassed. We know we need to be more strategic, but we're not. Hey, you know what? Let's meet you where you are right now and show some success and value.
Can you give some examples of questions you've asked to determine the culture level of a company?
Sure. I mean, one of the first questions I ask when we're talking about culture is describe a project that is universally considered a success. And then that kind of part B of that question is, why was it considered a success? And you get so much information from that question, right? Because one thing is how many people give you the same answer versus the diversity of answers there. That tells you something about measurement at that company, right? If everybody thinks that there are different projects that were successful, that tells you that, wow, different people have different measurements for what success looks like, as opposed to people going, oh yeah, when we modernized our CRM, program, and, we immediately, increased our customer base by 30% through micro segmentation, and, and revenues resulted from that, and everybody agrees. Interesting, right? So there's some measurements in there, right? That, we increased revenue, we got more customers, right? So that's actually a very interesting kind of cultural statement about people's value and the company's value in what's important, versus, everybody naming off a different project, the implication there being that everybody has different definitions of success. So it doesn't have to be an analytics project. It can be an enterprise project or some sort of strategic goal or something. But the answers to that question tell you a lot about what's measured. And what you want to do with that is you want to design a program that echoes those success measurements. And, in the case of, there being a diversity of ideas about what success looks like, you design a very kind of, thin program that's very broad, that lets people achieve those success metrics on maybe a smaller scale. And so again, it comes back to kind of designing these programs around not only strategy, but around what it's going to take culturally for analytics and data to really be embraced by the company.
how do these companies approach you? Do they approach you with a specific problem? Say, Jill, we need to solve this problem. Can you advise us? Right.
Yeah.
So that's one aspect of it. And then let's say once you've started the engagement, you've been selective about it. And then what's your approach within the organization? What's a starting point? Is there a set starting point? How do you assess the maturity level of a culture or all of the aspects? So the two aspects, like how do the companies approach you? And then what is your starting point?
Yeah, it's interesting. It's a good question. I typically the conversation there's two kind of conversations companies come to me with. The first one is we've hit the wall. Everybody thinks we're done with analytics, that everything's good, or we're ready to reinvest, but we don't know where. We've hit the wall with analytics and data, and we need to know what to do next. Mm-hmm. The other one is some sort of education. Our executives don't get it, or I myself need some executive coaching. And can you kind of help me with kind of a plan to reorganize the staff, or to up my own understanding of analytics. And kind of part B of that one might be our organization is broken. Can you give us kind of new organizational structures? That seems to be a hot one right now. Mm-hmm. So an organization has been designed around analytics goals that were kind of articulated 5 to 10 years ago, and analytics has outgrown that organizational structure and the skill sets within it. So how do we kind of recalibrate who does what, and what the reporting structures look like, and how that organization or those organizations report into the company at large? How do we shake things up a little bit? So it's interesting. It's either the, tell us what to do and how to move forward, or, we're kind of at an inflection point here in terms of what we need to know. And can you help us kind of design that organization or program around what we need to know now?
But who are those people exactly in the organization? Are they the board? Is this the CEO? I'm just curious, at what level is someone asking you to come in and do a reorg design or et cetera?
Yeah, it's typically a C-level executive who understands the need and maybe needs help articulating it, or needs to drum up support for it. So right now I've got a CIO and a CMO and a vice president of marketing. Right. So it's typically C-level people that want that kind of external injection of expertise, and they're really smart in their own right, and they have suspicions on what to do, and they may just want, somebody to kind of dig into things and either, kind of bless that approach, or, suggest some disruptive, alternatives. The brave people actually want to be challenged, right? The good executives, want to be, want us to kind of unravel stuff together. So it's kind of fun to do that. And I love executives who admit that they've reached their, kind of threshold of knowledge, and, they want to move forward, and they want the company to move forward in the right way.
So it's actually interesting. You said CMO, like Chief Marketing Officer. I've also been seeing a trend of the marketing officer looking to, understand their customer segments better, or to do better sales and marketing operations, and need better data. And it's kind of interesting. You also didn't mention the Chief Data Officer asking for you to come in and reassess, because maybe it's a little too personal for them.
It is. That's a little too fraught, right? And Chief Data Officer is an interesting role, because I've never seen it look the same exact way across companies, right? It's kind of like that Tolstoy quote, is every unhappy family is unhappy in its own way, kind of thing. Every Chief Data Officer is a little bit different and has a little bit different scope at every company. So, but yeah, if you reach the point where you're a Chief Data Officer, you've probably reached that point because you have some very, very closely held beliefs that you've managed to convince people are the right direction to go in. I think people that may be a little higher level than that, or more on the business side than that, are more open to change.
Thank you for listening to today's episode. If you liked what you heard today and would like to hear more, please subscribe to our podcast on your favorite player like iTunes and Spotify. And please do rate our podcast. Also, please go to our website, www.datatransformerspodcast.com, for more episodes, blogs, and information on our speakers. Thank you.